Denver Broncos, Mile High View, no commercials, no bullshit. Here we go again. We're Super Bowl bound. 2.0. It never ends. It just never ends. A name! I see a name. Ahoy! Unman the harpoon. Yep, they went and got themselves another name. But I don't understand. Everybody put out, they're getting Sean Payton, they're getting Belichick, they're getting a Harbaugh, they're getting this, they're getting that. They put all the names out now, and they all told us that they told us so. Well, those people that said, see, I told you, they put all the names out and said the Broncos were getting every single one of those. But I put a video out, and it was called, Will the Broncos Be Able to Bribe Sean Payton? Apparently, they were able to bribe Sean Payton. Payton took the bribe. The Saints finally caved with, what they wanted, and that was what everything was hinging on. Although it seemed like the Broncos were really interested in DeMeco Ryan as well. But I'm just going to say this: this makes absolutely zero sense. Yes, they got another name, and yes, the same sports writers are. Broncos are going to the Super Bowl. I think that after this fails to produce the fruits that they think it's going to produce, I think it's going to be about. I mean, I think it was tough getting anybody to come here. I think that was true. I don't think that was ever the issue. I think of getting people to come here was an issue. And I thought if they got anybody, it would have worked out better for the Broncos. It would have been Harbaugh. One, because it translates better with Russell Wilson. Two, if Russell Wilson doesn't work out, you can keep Harbaugh in a building capacity. My friend, New Orleans Saints fan, Eddie, he said that Harbaugh, and we talked about this in the very beginning, when at first they were inquiring. He said that Sean Payton isn't a guy that likes to build. He wants to have a ready-made quarterback. So the Broncos sold this idea that they're just a head coach away, which they're not. We all know that. The player personnel doesn't match in any way what Payton was running. Nobody wants to talk about that. It's just a name like they always do. It's a big splash move. It's just the Broncos being the Broncos yet again. And I think this most likely will be the last hurrah. I do not see this turning into anything but muddling in the middle at best. And I'm going to let you get into where the Broncos are all handicapped yet again because they had to go out and get another big move. So basically, we can't get the player personnel, the way I see it, to match what the Saints had. They are nowhere in the same universe. And could you talk a little bit about how your gut reaction on the bribe?
Well, I want to congratulate you on being right. I said I'd come on here if I was wrong, and I was wrong on this whole Sean Payton thing. I said that Sean Payton wouldn't come here. I said that he wouldn't take the bribe because of what I heard on Fox Sports. I thought that he would go or wait to go to an organization that had ownership, GM, player personnel all aligned. I thought that was what he wanted to do. Obviously, he would rather take the money than uh, continuing his legacy per se. So he's coming to an organization that went and begged Jim Harbaugh. When that didn't work, they went and begged DeMeco Ryan. So when that didn't work, they turned around and went after Sean Payton. Reports are coming out. That's exactly what they did. Um, I don't think that this is going to correlate to anything, just due to the fact that you don't have a first or second round pick for this year and next year. A lot of people want to say that the draft is a crapshoot. I disagree with that full heartedly because that is basically the foundation of your team is the depth.
Well,
The foundation of
it depends
it.
who's doing the drafting. You have that foundation. Do you have a GM, owner, and coaching staff all on the same page, turning these lower round draft picks into gems like we see with some of these other teams? But go ahead.
You're absolutely correct on that assessment. The Denver Broncos you do realize that Sean Payton likes to run a 4-3 under defense. So here we go again. We're going to put players in positions that don't fit a 4-3 defense outside of maybe a Draymond Jones and a Randy Gregory.
Randy Gregory now.
And
Yeah.
Randy Gregory. So this might help out a guy like Randy Gregory if they actually have their shit together and have him put his hand in the dirt as a 5 tech and a 4-3. But let me just say this: you do understand that on the offensive side, he likes to run a multi-power run system. He likes to spread it out and so on and so forth. He likes to spread the ball out and go 20 plus yards. The reason why I'm not excited about this is because I don't think that Russell Wilson is a Sean Payton quarterback. And I thought that Teddy Bridgewater would be a better type of quarterback. Payton would be a better quarterback for him. Drew Lock.
Can I say something really quick here? This would be an absolutely exciting pick had Bridgewater, not just Bridgewater still be the quarterback, but if we still had all that draft capital and all we lost was what this deal did. Okay, maybe we could and still had all that we lost in the Russell Wilson. But having the way I see this is you got a guy that doesn't want to build anything, according to Saints fans. He wants something ready-made. That's my biggest problem with this whole thing. This team is not ready-made. I know it's being sold that way, but it's not in no way ready-made, especially for a system that they haven't even been drafting or getting players to even be a part of that system, especially on the lines, both lines.
Well, both of the offense and defensive line for the Denver Broncos are one of the worst in the National Football League, possibly is the worst in the National Football League. And again, I always go back to player personnel and the stability of the organization. The organization isn't stable. If they would have wanted Sean Payton, and this is going to your point, I would have been more ecstatic if this was 2 to 3 years ago when we had Teddy Bridgewater and all that draft capital, all that cap space to do it the right way. But again, from what you've told me and from what research I've done, Sean Payton doesn't want to build anything. And here's the problem I have with this whole thing. Is now we're going to hear, because I predicted that we would hear that we were a head coach away. We're going to the Super Bowl. Here we go again, 2.0. Yeah. You do not have the player personnel that stacks up with the top tier teams in the NFL. You think one person is going to wave a magic wand just like you thought Russell Wilson was going to wave a magic wand. You don't have the player personnel that stacks up to the systems that Sean Payton wants to bring over from the Saints to the Denver Broncos. And that's the whole crux of this whole thing, in my personal opinion. And I said, and I'm going to continue to keep my word on this, I'm going to go after Sean Payton now because, buddy, you basically went against everything that you said when you were talking about on Fox Sports Sunday. I understand that the money was probably more intriguing to you.
Go on, take the money and run. Woo,
take the money and run.
Go on, take the money and run.
To me, I think the NFL as a whole is just a shitty product. I don't think that anybody wants to have dynasties. I don't think anybody wants to build, legendary teams, consistent organizational winners. And
not enough, dude. Not enough, dude. There's some of that going on.
Well, there's not enough. There's not enough going around, and that was when the NFL was at its peak. Was when you had consistent dynasty winners.
If the organization had if this organization had Pat Bowlen, but everything that this ownership learned, they learned from this god awful trust, splashy moves that make no sense. This doesn't make any sense. He's a name, getting names, signings that, end up biting you in the ass. This has all the earmarks of the trust all over it.
Now, let me go by saying this. I am not saying Sean Payton is a crappy coach. I think he's a great offensive mind. But you do not have the player personnel that you can run the system that he wants coming over from the Saints. That is where I have the issue with it.
Not even remotely. That
is where I have a problem with this, is because you do not have the player personnel that can stack up with what Sean Payton wants to do. You don't have the receivers that can separate. You do know that he had a guy in Alvin Kamara that all around elusive receiving type back. Javonte Williams isn't that. He is not that. So again, you're putting Javonte Williams in a tough spot because he cannot do the things that Alvin Kamara does. I'm not saying that you cannot go out and find an Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara is a special type of athlete / player. But again, you can't go out and find somebody like that. Here's the whole thing rolled into one bow. Is my issue with this whole entire thing is, number one, you're going out and you're giving up everything for two guys the past 2 years, Russell Wilson and now Sean Payton. I believe those two things will not correlate to success.
No, it's vinegar and water. It's vinegar and oil. It's vinegar and oil. It's vinegar and oil.
You're putting a square peg in a round hole.
Yes.
Will Russell Wilson look better than he did last year? He probably will to some degree, but to me, that's not what I'm expecting. I want somebody that is consistent at their job. I do not want inconsistency on this team, and that's what you're getting, and that's what you've been getting for 8 years now. Is you're getting inconsistency. You're going after a name in Sean Payton, who I quite frankly just took the money and ran with it more than anything else. But before we get called, our voice doesn't matter. My problem with this whole entire thing is you don't have the player personnel on both sides that what Sean Payton wants to do coming over from the New Orleans Saints. So I hope that makes sense to some people, but it probably won't, because they're going to tell you how great and we told you so, and they're going to have their pom-poms ready, but they're not going to look at the player personnel and the organizational stability first before they make a judgment on this whole entire trade for Sean Payton.
Well, no matter who they got, whoever ended up getting this job, they have to figure out who's going to be an offensive coordinator. And if I'm out there, it's like, yeah, Sean, you got your check, you got your money. They're not going to get rid of you. But if I can't fix Russell Wilson and I can't, make this player personnel that doesn't even mesh with what you did in New Orleans, if I can't make that work, they're going to run me out of town, and you're going to be fine, and Wilson's going to be fine. So as a head coach, you're going to have to figure out who's willing to stick their neck into basically a noose and be the fall guy, the guy that ultimately falls on the sword and gets drummed out of town. When the media starts saying, they're confused, they don't understand why the magic wand didn't work or whatever, just like last year, it's going to be tough for him to get somebody to come in here that is willing to fall on the sword, basically.
Well, you're absolutely correct, and you have to get coaches that fit a certain scheme. You have to get coaches that are in the same alignment of what Sean Payton wants to do offensively, defensively, and what he wants to do. I'm going to be very, very curious on what he gets on his coaching staff. Now, before we get into any of that, the reason why I brought up that I thought he would be better with Bridgewater, Locke, etc., is because I believe here's why. Because they have something that Russell Wilson doesn't, and that's a quick release. And that's what Drew Brees was known for, was his quick release, reading the field a lot better than what Russell Wilson can.
They're diametrically two different quarterbacks.
Let me tell you something. Yeah, they're diametrically different. And let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, if you go and watch the film, I know a lot of you people don't have the mindset to do that, but if you go and watch the film, Russell Wilson holds onto the ball too long. He locks onto receivers, and he's not an accurate thrower of the football. That's what Drew Brees was known for. He was an accurate thrower of the football in the middle of the field. He had a quick release. He took the easy dump passes, and he was able. And also, they also had receivers, and they had an offensive line there in New Orleans when they actually figured it out, and what made them successful. Because from what you've told me many, many times, and your friend Eddie has told you, is Sean Payton was never into this line-centric approach. He was always with the receiver-centric approach.
It was the GM for New Orleans.
Mickey Loomis.
That pounded in his head, you got to get these lines, and that's the problem the Broncos are in right now. They do not have the offensive and defensive line player personnel that the Saints in their heyday, what they had when Sean Payton was on top of the world. Again, I think this is a situation. I told you off camera, if they were going to pull a rabbit out of their hat, I would have preferred Harbaugh, because I think Harbaugh, you could have kept him, got rid of Russell Wilson if it didn't pan out, and he would build you. He would build you that stable organization. I'm sorry, he would get you the player personnel based around his system. And he's a building guy. Sean
Yes,
Payton's
and I
not a building guy.
no, he's into those. He's into what we like to say quick fixes. And my personal opinion on the matter is, you were right on the Sean Payton thing. I have to give you credit. This was the only man out there that said Sean Payton would take the bait, that would take the bribe. I said I would come on here and say that. But at the end of the day, I am also hearing that he fixed Jameis Winston. Yeah, because he had the player personnel. The player personnel was already
Well, I
surrounded.
think Jamie Winston's a different quarterback too than Russell Wilson.
Absolutely, they're completely two diametrically different type of quarterbacks. But the player personnel on the Saints far exceeds the player personnel on the Denver Broncos, and you're going to go and overpay for a head coach that, you're basically doing what you did with Russell Wilson. You're basically doing what you did with Fangio. You're basically doing what you did with Hackett, Kubiak, all the above. Is you're putting these people in situations in a square peg in a round hole that doesn't fit their strengths. And that is the problem I'm having with this whole thing that nobody wants to bring up. Nobody wants to talk about. They just want to talk about how great of a move this is, but you're not looking at the crucial pieces of this whole thing.
Well, you're not
which
looking
is
at the big picture.
well, you're not looking at the player personnel. You're not looking at the organizational stability. So Sean Payton, this is to you. If you ever come across this video, I have lost all types of respect for you because you went against what you said was important to you, was stable ownership, a GM that you had the same vision towards doing for a team, and you basically went against that.
Take the money and run. Ooh, yeah. Ooh, Lord. Take the money and run. Ooh, yeah. I got to go.
Okay.
Take the money and run. Just go on. Take the money and run.
Here we go again 2.0.
Take the money and run.
2.0.
Take the money and run.
Here we go again 2.0, Chop